Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alicia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hello, Ruby. I'm so excited to have you on the show. If you could start by telling everyone a bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
I am a podcast growth strategist, and I am a mom in a blended family, have 5 kids total. 2 are grown and gone from home, and 3 that I am homeschooling. I've used a lot of the research skills that I learned with being a homeschool mom of neurospicy kids and turned it into business assets for my own businesses, and then kind of pivoted into helping support other people's businesses as well.
Love that. So how did you get into the podcast growth strategist side? Where does that kind of come into your story? Because the first time we met, you were doing salsa, right?
Yes.
How did that come about for you?
Well, the gourmet salsa business was loads of fun, but it wasn't serving my family well for the season that I'm in. And so a little over a year ago, I shut down operations on that. I had to take all 3 kids with me to go and deliver cases of salsa to local wholesalers and piling the kids in the salsa in the little red wagon. And it got lots of laughs. We made some good memories, but it wasn't very sustainable. I had lost all of our local team members during the COVID shutdowns and was unable to rehire. So I knew that I needed to close that down, but wasn't sure exactly where I was going next. While I was in the transition point, a good friend of mine who has a podcast was super frustrated with her audience level. And I said, well, while I'm in this messy transition zone, why don't you send me your logins and I'll poke around and see what I can uncover that might be able to help you out a little bit. The podcasting thing kind of fell in my lap, honestly. I took one look at where she was at with her Pinterest account and started poking holes in it. And since she was a good friend, I could do that in a more blunt way than what most of us can do with clients. I'm like, you need to be doing this and this and this. She went, oh, I never thought of that. So we totally revamped her account, went in and optimized the whole thing. And I gave her a couple of tips for strategy that were very simple to implement, but made a huge difference in the growth she was seeing. In fact, this week, I just got a text message from her. She's supposed to hit like 100,000 downloads this week. So that's super exciting to see her having gone from just a few thousand downloads to that in less than a year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into why Pinterest. Before we get into tips, I know you guys want all the tips that she just alluded to. It's fine. Let's go into why Pinterest. Now, I understand the value of Pinterest. I have been using Pinterest since my mommy blogging days. So we're looking at maybe 10 years ago at this point. This is why when I tell people like, no, this is the business I have now, they're like, wow, how are you so successful? Like you just started in 2020. I'm like, no. I started in 2016, 15. That's when I really started. And I don't think people realize that. So if someone were to say, oh, well, you just started doing Pinterest for podcasters. No, these are things that I've had to build up skills for years in marketing my own businesses that I'm now able to present and support other people with. So thinking back to my mommy blogging days, and yes, I was a mommy blogger back in 2015, 16, and using Pinterest as a way to increase traffic to my website, and then later doing my own other things and the podcast. I had a really cool Pinterest moment with someone recently. She had found my podcast on Pinterest, saw a blog post or something, saw that there was a podcast attached, listened to the podcast, ended up binge listening to it on a road trip with her family. And like now I'm best friends with your kids and they don't know me. It's fine. Right. She left a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I always like to, if someone leaves a rating and review, see if I can find them on social media. I'm a millennial, so it's built in my DNA to find people on the internet. And so was able to find her, sent her a DM, said, and a voice message, because I think that adds an element of personality than just, hey, saw your review, thanks. You can hear my excitement in my voice, my gratitude. I sent her a voice message. She was like, I launched my podcast. Thank you so much. I could not have done this without you. And then a year after she launched her podcast, I interviewed her for my show. Just a full circle moment. And I hadn't realized she had found me on Pinterest until I had had that conversation with her. And then to be able to see that she was able to use her show to then, she's got a pretty interesting backstory where she was kidnapped when she was young, and the people who came in and rescued her, she was able to interview them for her podcast some 30 years after the fact, like being able to express her gratitude with them. And then they had an event. So pretty much, you never know what Pinterest can do for your life, for the people who engage with that content's lives. I'm amazed constantly that something that I can almost set and forget is able to make such an impact like that. So I'm a huge fan of Pinterest and I see its value. But for someone who's not considered Pinterest, what are some things that can convince them that this is a platform they should be putting some attention to?
In a nutshell, your podcast is evergreen and your marketing should be too, because
Mhm.
social media is incredibly exhausting. While we need to have a presence there, it's so incredibly time consuming. I'm finding that with a lot of the podcasters I'm working with, everybody's so burned out with the demands of engagement with your audience on social media. Nobody is wanting to do it anymore. Unless you're a VA and that's your specialty, more power to you. I will hire you in a heartbeat. But for a lot of us, we've been doing it for so long with our own businesses. By the time some of us migrate to the podcasting world, we're just done with it. We don't want to have to show up to engage with our audience. The evergreen content with Pinterest is amazing at how much it can tag team with the SEO on your website and in other locations to send you an audience that hadn't considered you. It's been opening up whole new worlds. I do want to touch on one thing you mentioned that I think bears repeating. When you are in the entrepreneurial world and you've been doing this for a while, just because you pivot into something new does not mean that your skills are new. And I have found where somebody looks at how long I've been doing Pinterest and go, well, you're kind of new on the scene. Why do you think you know this so well? It's like, well, I've had these previous businesses that I've been running for years. And you take all of the knowledge that you have of the strategy and the marketing to build your own businesses. And then if you pivot to serving other people, you bring all of that knowledge with you. And I feel like that's one of the main differences for how I've been showing up to serve my clients. And I'm sure you've seen the same when you have that knowledge to implement with the strategy and the marketing angles, where you see marketing as a holistic picture and you understand how SEO tag teams and the importance of reaching your audience in not just one or two platforms, but in various places. You just bring a lot more to the table that way.
Yeah, and I like what you said where people get kind of sick of social media, right? Because we think we have to cater to the algorithm. And in a sense, we do, depending on what platform you're on. With a platform, search engine, let's call it what it is, like Pinterest, you're not catering to someone's dopamine hits. You don't have to be funny. You don't have to be inspirational. You can be, right? But you could simply just be educating. And that is more than enough. And that works really well. Whereas if I were to do a reel about 5 strategies for podcast marketing, that is not going to do well on Instagram. It is not going to do well on Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn. It will do well just because the number of people that post on LinkedIn is so small that LinkedIn is trying to push all of the content that people do post. And so focusing on where can I do really well with the type of content that I want to create, right? So if you're someone who likes to create the more entertaining content, more power to you. But most of us that are business owners are busy enough as it is that we don't want to be dancing and be outrageously funny. But
Right.
we're here catering to those dopamine hits on social media versus educating and empowering and showing up as a leader in your industry is so much easier on places and search engines like Pinterest because you're able to just show up as you and say, here's a pretty graphic. And yes, I've optimized my profile, which we'll talk about. I've done all these things that's going to then send people to my information. They can see my blog posts. I've got those freebies on the side. I mean, I want to say between Pinterest, no, not even between Pinterest, just from Pinterest, I am able to get a new subscriber almost every single day by funneling them to my blog posts and all the content that I've created. It is so valuable, and I don't have to dance on TikTok to
Not
do
dancing
that.
is good for some of us.
So let's get into some of those very basic tips first. Let's start profile. What are some ways that we can make sure that we are optimizing our profile when we're bought into this Pinterest idea? Maybe we have one that is just sitting there, or we're starting fresh. What are some things that we can make sure we're doing on our profile?
Optimizing is the key for your visibility. So with Pinterest, you have to think in two different ways. You have to think like the Pinterest algorithm, and then you also have to think like your audience. Thinking like the Pinterest algorithm means all of the SEO keywords and making sure that your message is solid so that Pinterest knows who to show the pins to. In terms of your audience, yes, they want the pretty graphic, but especially in the first few months of training the Pinterest algorithm, it's more important to focus on SEO keywords and make sure that everything is optimized for Pinterest to know who needs to see your pins. One of the biggest mistakes that I see from people who have been around since the mommy blogging days is that everybody wanted to name their boards and even their account something cutesy. Don't be cutesy on Pinterest. Just say what it is. Use the keywords, make sure that your account is named something how people can find you. The boards are named something that people would search for. The description of the boards has all of the keywords for that specific board. Otherwise, Pinterest doesn't have a clue who needs to see your pin, and you don't want your pins going out to 522 million users.
Right. You want to be really strategic with that. I'm even thinking about the last time I touched my Pinterest boards and added descriptions, even my profile description. There are little tweaks and things that I can add or change to make it more optimized that I still get people from Pinterest, but how can I make the most of it and get even more so that when people do find me, they're like, yes, no brainer. I want to get what this person has. And then even thinking about the back end, just from a strategy standpoint, using something like Pinterest, I think that it's such an underutilized tool that people should be using. Thinking about how I sent an email last week to my email list and had a freebie in there. And then from the freebie, I had some upsells. I had my $9 upsell, my $27 upsell, and a one on one strategy session, which is like $250. And from there, I made $47 from sending an email. So two people bought my $9 one person bought my $27 one. Even thinking about Pinterest. So I've got someone who funnels through my Pinterest stuff. They download, let's go with the top one that ends up getting downloaded, which is the one that's at the top of the blog post as well. 15 ways to improve your podcast. It's a free downloadable, but from there I can have my $9 upsell, my $27 upsell. And so I've got them with my blog content because I see, wow, this is really informational. This is really helpful. Ooh, 15 ways to improve my podcast. Yes, please, I want that. And then they download that. And then from there, they buy the $9 thing. It's a create your killer trailer, right? Anyone who has a podcast would need that. Even if you already have an established trailer, it's probably not that good. So how to create a better one? $9, sure. Why not? Like it's just $9. Let's make this easy. And having that as a tool to easily funnel people through without having to yell on social media constantly, look at me, I have things, is so much easier. And I don't have to be on all the time to do it.
And it's important to stay within your zone of genius. If your zone of genius is creating the content for your podcast and creating the products for other podcasters to utilize, you don't want to have to be wasting your time showing up 24/7 on social media to engage with your audience. And the evergreen content on Pinterest, where knowing that 10 years later, you can still be making sales and finding people from a pin, which I know a couple of different business owners who are still getting sales off of a pin that they pinned 10 years ago. Unbelievable, mind blowing to me. But that's the way we all want our marketing to be, where it does its job for us and we don't have to keep showing up to go, hey, here I am, purchase from me or listen to my podcast. It's just exhausting.
Yeah. And we're probably not going to get into this today, but even Pinterest ads, I have found the return on my investment is so much better with the number of people that funnel through my email list. I would much rather run ads on Pinterest than on any other platform because I know it's going to get in front of the right people. I know it's going to actually convert, which is a big deal. And I think that they're also really helpful. I recently ran ads on Pinterest. I think it was like $50 over the course of a month. I'm not spending tons of money, but I had a new freebie that I wanted to make sure got pushed out there. And I also got an email from someone who works at Pinterest that was like, "Hey, we'd love to book a call with you. We want to make sure that we're optimizing these ads for you. Would you like to get on a call?" Right? Facebook is not going to do that. LinkedIn,
No.
maybe. I like LinkedIn too. LinkedIn might. YouTube is not. None of these other places are going to go out of their way to support the users who are driving traffic and creating content for their platforms in this way. So, we're not going to get into ads today, but I think that if that's something you're considering, it's definitely worth exploring for sure.
It is only worth exploring provided you have an optimized account, because what I have been finding with content or ads, some clients come in expecting to just post a few graphics on Pinterest and expect it to magically generate sales, and it won't unless it's fully optimized. Pinterest has to know who to put the pins in front of. In terms of the time investment for a business owner, or if you have a VA working with you, knowing that once your account is optimized, it doesn't take that much time to create a pin that will resonate with your audience. If you have a new product launch or a new episode coming out on your podcast, you've already got all of the optimization established for the account. So you just have to worry about that specific pin. Since for your audience, the pin has to stand alone. Anything that you put on the pin graphic or on the pin description, that's what that particular user is going to find. They're not necessarily going to go look at the board and find your other pins. They're going to go on the pin that came across their feed.
What are some ways we talked about the profile and some of those boards? What are some other ways that we can make sure that we're optimizing our profile to make sure that it's getting in front of the right people?
So with one client that I'm working with right now who has a podcast in the health and wellness area, she specifically serves women with Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. We have boards that are specific to people searching for Hashimoto's. We also have boards that are specific for autoimmune, because if somebody doesn't actually have a diagnosis yet, they may not be looking under the term Hashimoto's. So you have to think kind of around the issue. Whatever the podcast episode is that she's releasing, we'll kind of talk around the keyword as well, since she serves people with Hashimoto's, but there's all these surrounding issues with thyroid and autoimmune. We put all of those keywords in, but are targeted in which board they go in. Since one board deals specifically with autoimmune, one board deals specifically with thyroid, one board is Hashimoto specific, you never know how somebody's going to search. And all of those overlap, but not everybody is going to use all three terms when they're searching for content. It kind of depends on where they're at in their own journey. I would imagine it would be that way with a lot of different niches. You have to think in terms of how somebody's going to be searching for you, because like you already stated, Pinterest is a search engine. This is not social media. You have to be really intentional with thinking, how would my audience be searching for the information that I am giving in this particular podcast episode? Is it somebody who is trying to figure out what's going on with their health right now, and so they're just Googling holistic thyroid health? Or are they already on the journey of, they have a diagnosis, now what? I'm overwhelmed. Do they have the word Hashimoto's to be able to input? So thinking in terms of what question is my audience going to be asking for the content that I'm giving in this episode can be super helpful.
And when it comes to creating the content too, I think that helps us think of the content a little bit different, right? So if we're thinking about future episodes that we maybe want to create, okay, how can I meet my audience wherever they are in their journey? I think that so often, especially when we know things, we jump right into that you're struggling with, when really they don't even know yet what they're struggling with. They're still trying to figure it out. They're just trying to absorb as much content. They're randomly searching at 2:00 in the morning, right?
We've
How
all
can
been
we
there.
make we all have. How can you make sure that the content that we're creating, that then, yes, we can put onto Pinterest, is optimized for those people no matter where in their journey they are seeking for us? I think is a really important point. And these are things that can help us when we're thinking about, okay, how can I use Pinterest better? Well, how can I create better content that works better on Pinterest, as well as for our audience, right? I think is also a good driving factor.
Yes, I think taking a step back from where you are in your journey, whether it's an education piece or whatever you're offering in your episode, take a step back. If I didn't know this information, how would I be searching for this information? Make sure that you address that not only in the episode, but in the words, the messaging of how you present it to your audience on Pinterest, on Facebook, on your blog, wherever. Are you using the questions that your audience is going to be using? If you're looking at it from the standpoint of, your piece of the journey. You have to back up a step. Before I knew this, what was the question that I was asking?
Yeah, but we are tend to be so far ahead in our journey from the people that we're trying to serve that we sometimes forget that part. Do you have any places that you like to go to for helping title things in a way that really helps with the search engine optimization side of Pinterest?
Honestly, there's so many right now, sometimes it feels overwhelming. I usually just use some of the more generic keyword searches to tag team with what I already know in terms of how I optimize the accounts. Even the search bar in Pinterest can be helpful because it works like Google does, where if you type in a particular word, it's going to bring up long tail keywords for you and you can find the phrases or the way that people are searching with the top hits. And then it gives you a little bit better idea as to the content that people are actively using or actively searching for on Pinterest.
So the tool that I use, and this is good for coming up with original content as well, and trying to think of, like you mentioned, what are the topics that my audience is interested in? And this is a good point. I think I've mentioned it in my podcast content workshop, as well as any episodes on creating podcast content and brainstorming ideas. Answerthepublic.com. It is a Neil Patel digital product now. It used to not be, but I believe his company bought it. And they have 3 free daily searches that you can create as long as you create a free account. And you can type in podcast marketing, right? So for me, I would do something like podcast marketing. How are people talking about podcast marketing on places like Pinterest, like YouTube, like Google, these search engines? How are they searching for the topics that are important? And then how can I create content that directly answers those questions, however long or short they need to be to answer those questions, and then using those types of long tail keywords for putting the content on Pinterest, your blog, or YouTube. And so I like that one. Like I said, it gives you 3 daily searches. Try to be specific to what you're trying to search for, and then you can get 3 more the next day. We don't really need a ton of searches for this, but that's a really good tool that I like to use when I was first starting out with my podcast. Like I could talk about anything, but I want to make sure that the first 20 episodes are cornerstone content. They're really strategic. What are those topics that people really care about that I can keep referencing back to and that I can keep promoting like crazy?
Another one that can help is some of the subject line analyzers if you're into email marketing at all, because the subject line analyzers also help with the keyword descriptions and stuff within Pinterest. The titles for your pins, the board titles, all of that. If you know what people are searching for, then you know what content you need to be putting out and how to position yourself.
I wouldn't have thought of that, the email title optimized. That's really cool.
If they'll open an email with a particular subject line, then they'll be more likely to click on that pin as well.
Yes. It makes sense. I just don't know why I never thought of it. Probably because I'm like just being strategic with my email marketing after years of building it.
You can't be
It's
good at
not.
all the things, Alicia.
I know, I wish, but I can't. It's true. So we've optimized our profile. What are some tools that we can use to create pins and maybe schedule those out or post them natively? What are some things that we can make sure that we're focusing on as we're doing that?
I have had very conflicting reports from some of the business owners that I have worked with on whether or not using a third-party scheduler is detrimental to your account. I have not personally found the time investment to go live pinning to be worth it at all. I prefer to use SmarterQueue over anything else that I've tried. In all the years I've been in business, I hate using Tailwind. It is so clumsy to me. Everybody has their favorite tool and all of us have brains that work differently. For me, SmarterQueue makes sense. It's intuitive. I find it much easier to plan things out that way. So within SmarterQueue, there's AI integration for writing the descriptions, which some platforms offer, but you have to either pay for a higher level tier or it's an add-on feature. With SmarterQueue, it's included even in the lower level package, which I think is pretty handy for small business owners, especially when you're just getting off the ground. Some of those tools can get pretty spendy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
SmarterQueue will rotate through to where it will use image 1 with description 1. If you're batching content, time saving, I'm looking for all the ways to streamline. It'll do image 1, description 1, image 2, description 2. And then when it goes back through the cycle, it'll flip that to where it's image 1 with description 2 and start rotating. So you get more bang for your buck. Pinterest still views it as a new pin, provided you are using new descriptions and all of that.
Nice. And then on the back end, are you scheduling it to different boards as well? So if,
Yes.
say, it could be relevant for the Hashimoto board as well as the autoimmune disease board, would you have it kind of funneling between both of those boards as well?
Absolutely. And I might tweak the content again, depending on which board I'm going for and which keywords I think her audience will be searching for. Typically, just for the sake of streamlining my own stuff and keeping my sanity intact, I'll batch content a whole bunch of images that I can use, and then I'll split that up into 3 different groups and pin them to 3 different boards. Use keywords in the description that are very specific for that board and how people will be searching for things within that content, even if the image is very similar to what something else used. It does depend on what season of business you're in and how long your podcast has been going, how long your Pinterest account has been up, all of those strategy pieces. And you have to be flexible and learn to jump with the pivots as they need to happen. In general, I would say the first 6 months of being on Pinterest, you have to be incredibly intentional about SEO to teach the Pinterest algorithm who you are and who they need to be showing your pins to. Once you hit about the 6 month mark, you can start getting a little bit more creative with the graphic that you are using and start appealing more to the audience themselves. You just don't want to start trying to go heavy on your audience centric until Pinterest knows who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also have a Smarter Q affiliate code,
I
I
do.
believe, right? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we'll make sure that we have that linked in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out. I am a Tailwind fan. I have been an affiliate for them. Take it or leave it. Either way, I think that you really have to find what tool works best for you. Smarter Q is also really great where you can have it for multiple platforms as well and creating those evergreen buckets, very similar to how I use Meet Edgar, and just having those regular posts go out where maybe your Facebook account you don't really want to do a lot of things with, but you know that you want to have this evergreen content constantly going. SmarterQ is a really good tool for that as well. So check out SmarterQ. I have used it. I like it. I just like Tailwind for Pinterest. I don't use it for any other platform because I think it doesn't need to be used for any other platform. It doesn't work well for any other one, but I like it for Pinterest. And again, these are opinions of our own
It
for
is
each of
really
these
important
platforms.
as a business owner to find the tools that work well for you because all of us have different flows of how we work and how our brain operates. And it is important to have tools that actually work for you. If you're trying to just force yourself in a box of how another business owner works, oh my goodness, it's exhausting. Been there, done that,
Yes.
have the t-shirt.
5, 5
Yeah.
t-shirts. Yeah. So we'll make sure we have that link for the Smarter Q affiliate code that Ruby has, as well as my Tailwind one. If someone's like, all right, Ruby, this feels overwhelming and I don't really know what to do. And I'm feeling like I just need to have somebody do it. What are some offers that you have where you can help support people on this podcasting Pinterest journey?
I have 3 different ways that I'm helping people right now. I will come in and do a complete new account build or an optimization of an existing account. And then I will do monthly maintenance. I make everybody start with the optimization package if they're going to work with me, because if you are starting with a bad foundation, the whole thing's going to go bad really fast. So, yes, we have to optimize first. Everybody starts there. If they want me to do monthly maintenance with it, I love doing the strategy pieces and checking in with people to make sure that we're matching the overall strategy for marketing as a holistic piece. But for people who aren't ready to go quite that big yet, they're still trying to kind of DIY things, I do offer 1 hour consultation calls where we can dive into your specific account, talk about your strategy, your audience, and figure out how you can show up and optimize your account with help from an expert to make sure that you're headed the right direction and building a strong foundation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's good to have that variety, right? That people have options they can pick from depending on where they're getting started. Thank you so much, Ruby. We'll have links for all the things we mentioned. But if someone is wanting to connect with you on social media, where is the best way they can find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads. I'm kind of all over the place because I've been in business long enough. I just hang out more often, probably on Facebook or on Threads. I'm getting into LinkedIn a little bit more now, especially with this newest business pivot. It's
Yeah.
been a fun place to hang out in the last little while.
I also feel like LinkedIn is probably my favorite place to hang out just because it's less dramatic.
Yeah. Well, it's changed a lot in the last few years. A decade ago or so, when I first checked into it, I was not impressed, to be honest. It felt very snobby and too professional. I like to connect with people as authentic human beings, not as corporate robots. Now it has a whole different feel. People are actually engaging and chatting. Everybody's welcome to look me up on LinkedIn and we'll connect over there.
Awesome. And we'll have that linked in the show notes for anyone who's driving or doing other things. Also, check out Ruby's website. We'll have that linked as well. Ruby, thank you so much. This has been so incredibly helpful. And everybody go check out Pinterest.
Well, thanks for having me on, Alicia. It's always a joy to chat with you.